Are you prepared to die? Bit of a shocking question, but part of natural's life flow. A very important question. Maybe you feel it's slightly morbid, and particularly if you're listening to this and it's in the winter and it's close to Christmas, but it's an absolutely pivotal question in terms of goal setting. I mean, if I'm going to get you to write your goals, that's one thing. If I'm going to get you to make a plan of what you want to do before you die, it all of a sudden has a lot more meaning and maybe even will be more motivating for you. So my name is Vicky Boucher and this is a Wealthy Life podcast. And let me just get you to go through this little thought exercise with me. What if yesterday was your last day on earth? How would you feel? After the shock wore off, of course, this is just a little mental exercise. You might be a bit sad to leave others behind, but park that feeling for a moment. Well, if you can, of course, and just start to imagine that you're looking back on your life. Are you feeling proud? Do you feel accomplished? Or do you feel that you've lived a life that was lacking something and you're full of regret? I mean, that would be an awful place to be if that was just moments before your death. And therefore, having this conversation now is going to put you in a position where you won't be feeling like that should the inevitable day come. But right now, we're drowning in gloom. As I say, if you're listening to this and it's still the depths of winter, well, of course, it depends where in the world you are. And judging by some of the downloads we have, you're listening to this all over the world. And even though it's winter, it might still be beautiful and sunny. And you've got long sunny days. And you've got no idea what I'm talking about in the UK, where we're drowning in economic gloom, shorter days, colder winters. We've got high interest rates, high utility bills, and utility bills to pay heating, and you might even be living in part of the country where you don't need heating. So just go with the flow for this a minute. Whatever else is going on in the world, the cost of living is rising. We've got a global recession on the horizon, and this is a combination of many things. It's partly because maybe Brexit, certain elections in certain countries. Obviously, we can't not mention the elephant in the room, 2 years of COVID, which will have affected everybody. But then also we have to talk about the war in Ukraine and the impact that that's happening on the global economy. But even if you park all of that, this is part of a natural cycle. If none of those things had happened, we would still inevitably go through a period of recession, which could be recession in the sense of coming back to recede, but it's also some cases it's a consolidation where things sort of firm themselves in position and growth doesn't take place. But that's a natural cycle, a series of cycles, if you like, that the media would have us believe is the end of the world, rather than an ordinary economic phenomena, if you like. Yeah, it's just, something that you would read about in the textbooks if they were going to tell you about the economics of the world and how the world functions. So why is this also a good time to invest in yourself, your life, your financial future? Yes, I'm going to say property, of course, because my experience shows me that property is always a good deal, regardless of the economic nonsense that we're going through. More millions are created in a financial crash than any other time. Why? Because, like Warren Buffett says, a successful person does the opposite of the masses. They invest when everyone else is pulling out of the market. Let me just take you back to that conversation that I had, that question I asked you. What if yesterday was your last day on earth? And obviously it won't be, which is why I said it that way, because you're still here and you're listening. Therefore, it couldn't have been your last day. But how would you have felt if it was your last day? Would you be proud of what you've achieved, or would you be regretful? And sort of sit with that for a moment and think about what that means. Yes, of course, we would have all of the natural emotions, as I said. There are going to be people that you miss. There might be a few people that you're glad that you don't have to see again, but you're generally going to be full of emotion. And we're just going to put that to one side, which is why we're doing it in the past, so that it's just a thought exercise. But by doing it now, it's giving you that opportunity to reflect on your life as it is, and reflecting on your starting point, if you like, even though there's been all this history behind you to bring you to the point where you were yesterday in our thought exercise. Reflecting on that journey that have got you to that place is very valuable when planning to move forwards. And I said that asking you the question, are you prepared to die, is actually a more interesting way of getting you to write your goals and create a plan for the year ahead, than if I just said to you, okay, this is going to be a podcast about goal setting. You're going to go, oh, I've heard that so many times. I don't want to do goal setting. Goal setting never works. And you're right. For a lot of people, goal setting doesn't work, because unless you, like me, create an Excel spreadsheet that you fill in on a daily basis to map your outgoings and your activity against your goals and your targets and look at where the gap is, which will then tell you what you need to do tomorrow. If you're just a normal person who writes several goals and then puts that piece of paper away and never looks at it again and wonders why you don't achieve them, or if you do, it's a complete mystery how you did achieve it because you've forgotten that you wrote it. If you're normal, then no, goal setting is unlikely to work for you. So what I've got for you today is an exercise, and it's not going to be about goal setting. It's going to be picking up on this thought that I gave you, or this idea exercise that I gave you right at the beginning. And while I normally say to you, share this with your children, this might actually be an exercise that you just share with your family, or maybe just your partner. And maybe don't share this directly with your children just yet, because it can have all sorts of other consequences, unless they're of an age to understand that this is a conceptual exercise. So going back to that question, if you knew that yesterday was your last say, and as I said, this is just an exercise to tune into planning, not an exercise into planning your death, planning for a future. If yesterday was your last day and we spoke, answer this question. What would be the happiest moments you could share with me? So you might want to write these down, or pause the podcast and have a little think right now. What would be the happiest moments you could share with me, and why do they make you happy? So pause the podcast or write these down if you want. Take a moment to just think about that. And there should be an amazing waterfall of ideas, of images, of occasions, of people, of outcomes, of laughing that flood into your mind right now. If you haven't got a smile on your face, then please definitely give me a call and let's have a chat. And if you can, do definitely write these down, or note them down later. It's always an amazingly wonderful thing to do, to have a list of fabulous memories that you can return to whenever you want. Particularly when you're having a struggling day and days get shorter, or whatever else they're doing, that it would be a great thing to have pinned on the wall just above your computers. So just in sort of eyesight, or maybe stick them on the fridge. Maybe you'll have them in code. You'll just have one word that will trigger this memory for you. But pulling up a list of your happiest moments has got to be the epitome of success, has got to be the epitome of a wealthy life. If you've lived a life that is full of happy memories, that makes you smile, what could be more successful than that? We know there are plenty of people out there with plenty of money that are miserable. that won't be able to come up with loads of ideas unless it involves spending lots of money buying a thing. And yeah, right, that maybe that makes you happy, but is that the true happiness that you're seeing right now? So now let me ask you another question. What are you most proud of? So think about that for a second. What are you most proud of and why? Is this something that you did? Is this something that you created? Is this something that somebody else has done that you're proud of? And if I just subtly change that at the same time and also ask you a partner question, if you like, what are your greatest successes? Now, it depends on how you define these in your language. Being something you're proud of and something that you're successful at may actually merge for you and be very similar. But for some, you'll find that this is completely different and actually quite a difficult thought, because proud for you might be very much the external, very much you are proud of others, the things that others have done, things that others have achieved. And actually, if we dig into them, you've probably played a part in the outcome that you are proud of, but you see it in other people and you see it external to yourself. If I then change the question slightly and say to you, what are your greatest successes? Then if you've had a hand in something that you are proud of for somebody else, there must be a success that lies behind that, because you have been successful in enabling someone to do something that you are proud of. But it's this idea that you have done something that really you are proud of, that you have done. And that's why using the word success sometimes makes it easier. You may also not have a problem with this question at all and be like you were with your happy moments, listing off a great list of things that you're proud of and things that you are or feel that you have been successful at. And that's great, because by asking you about successes and achievements, although sometimes tricky questions, they are evoking the positive again, as with the happy memories. And again, if you are going to either write it down now, please do, or please pause the podcast and wherever you are, just have a little think about these like you did with the happy memories. And of course, now you can imagine what's going to come next. The flip side of this is that I'm then going to ask you the question, what are your biggest regrets? This means about you, what you've achieved or not achieved, and what you've lost along the way, what you've not acquired, not, failed to achieve or failed to succeed at. So what are your biggest regrets? And let's not dwell on this too long. There may be a few of you that are getting a waterfall, which is fine. Let it come, make a note of it. But for some of you, you might have to dig a little. And I don't want you to dig into something that is then very painful. So stay in the idea that this is an exercise and all you're doing is observing what's gone on before, because actually yesterday wasn't your last day. So this is all a thought exercise and it's absolutely fine. And just cast your mind back. But it's quite important to actually tackle this topic and to skim off the top, if you like, to just gather the merest idea of the things that are regretful so that you understand what it was. And again, that you can make a list. And really what I want you to do here is, from that list and from this series of thoughts, much like we did with the happy exercise. Do you remember creating the happy calendar back in episode 33 a couple of months ago now? In fact, you might want to go back and update it when you've done this exercise. You can take those happy memories, you can take those occasions that you had a part in and that you're proud of. You can take all of those successes that you've had in the past, create that list and plan to do more of that from today stroke tomorrow. And that's why I say you might also want to go back and update the happy calendar in order to feed them in there. What can you plan to achieve now, particularly now that you didn't die yesterday, that will make your life more happy, more successful, more financially secure? Like I said to you just a few minutes ago, it's about understanding that all of this doom and gloom that's sitting around, whether it's shorter days, whether it's global recessions, that's all just the noise that is out there. And you will have been through these cycles before. And the reason I say that I know now is a great time to invest in property is because the situation now at the end of 2020 is exactly the same as when I started investing in property in 2008. So in 2008, we had just come through, if you remember, the collapse of the American banks, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and Lehman Brothers and all of that, and interest rates were soaring. And when I started investing in 2008, interest rates were 5%. And we have interest rates at around the 5-6% now. I still invested in property. Those properties over the last 14 years have provided cash flow, have increased in value. Some I've sold and I've taken the capital, and some I've continued to keep and retain the cash flow. It's just a cycle, and they are cycles within cycles. It's all just a pattern. And if you can start to see everything as a pattern rather than everything as a drama or everything as the end of the world, as the media would have you, then you can see through that illusion. You can hang on to the real and the tangible. And I'm saying the real and tangible. A happy memory, technically by the fact that it's a happy and a memory, is actually the most intangible thing you can have. But it is a tangible feeling in that it creates a response in you. You will know that you were happy. You will know that you did meet those people or do that thing or experience something, maybe hear music or see something wonderful, whatever it is. And you can recreate those. Now, if you are now a grandparent and one of your happy memories is the day you had your first child, then all right, you can't exactly recreate that. But what you can do is look forward to the birth of your grandchildren. Now, that's not within your gift. You might plan that, but actually, unless you're going to force your children into breeding and having children, you're not really going to have any influence over that. So what you can do is you can go back and you can dig into it. What was it about your first child and the start of the family that was so important to you? And then maybe what you'll do is you'll hook on to the words family and love. And maybe from the words family and love, what you'll do, going back to the idea we had with the happiness calendar, is you will then feed into the idea that you want to spend time, have not necessarily a hard routine where someone has to show up every Sunday or every Saturday to see you or every Thursday and make it a burden so then the other person isn't happy themselves, but actually coming together that are maybe some family times where you do stuff that is fun, that makes you all laugh, that creates a new memory for all of you. So that if we move forward in time by 10 years and ask this question of the people that were there, one of the happy memories they'll have is of this family occasion that you created. Maybe one of the successes you had was buying your first investment property, or maybe you invested in a share, or maybe you started a business. And you don't have to now put on the happiness calendar, right, tomorrow I'm going to start another new business, and then next week I'm going to start another new business. It's not about taking this literally. It's about identifying the emotions and the occasions that go with those emotions that are important to you. Remember, a wealthy life is doing what you love with those that matter. And I can change that sentence so many times. It can also be about doing what matters to you most with those you love, or doing what you love with those that matter most. You can interchange it, but it's about, at the bottom, whether you love it or not, or it's just about whether it matters to you. It's the same thing, isn't it? If it matters to you, you would love it. You're not going to have something matter to you that is awful. You're going to look for something positive, and therefore bring this all together. Look upper level, observe from above these thoughts that you've had. What made you happy? Why have you been proud? What have been your greatest successes? But also acknowledge where there have been regrets, and what could you have done differently, and therefore what can you do differently going forward? Was it that, I don't know, you didn't invest in a specific business, or you didn't invest in property, or you didn't take that job offer, or maybe, like so many of the men I speak, and if I can take us back to episode 1 and 2 and 3, you spent so much time working, you missed your children growing up. Now's your opportunity, if you're lucky enough, to spend time with your grandchildren and be part of their lives growing up. So you could take a regret and turn it into a positive. That's the point, isn't it, of observing these things? So this exercise links back to the happiness calendar back in episode 33. It does also, just because I mentioned it, touch on those very first episodes that I recorded way back last year, where I asked the question, is your life driven by your job title, in episode 1? And then even things about, what is your role? What's your avatar within the family life, which I think was the conversation in episode 2, probably back then. This is a real chance for you to create a meaningful plan. Maybe not down at the micro level, you can do that afterwards if you choose, but more about the 5 principles of a wealthy life, getting clarity about what really matters to you in life. And that is your observation of, what if yesterday was your last day on this planet? What were you happy about? Where would your regrets lie? And pull from that the information that you need to shape your life as you move forward, so that you can create. And if you have this conversation with your adult partner, or maybe adult family members, how you can co-create a life that moves forward. Maybe this is a topic to have with a family at some family gathering, and you might choose to change the question, and rather have everybody think about dying yesterday, maybe you just ask them straight out the question, what are your happiest moments? It might be really interesting to see what other family members remember as happiest moments. Have you forgotten some of the happiest moments? Maybe ask them what they thought you are successful at. Ask them maybe why they were proud of you. We might be getting down a sort of a deep end there, and it depends on your family, it depends on the occasion, of course, but these are things that we could talk about more. And then you could take it to another level. And why not start having these conversations with your children, not on a daily basis, and very definitely not the whole, if you died yesterday. Let's not plant those ideas for children, but ask children, what's their happy memory? You know, what if they think back over the last year, what was the thing that made them happiest? What did they enjoy most? Where do they think they've been successful? Ask them what it means to be successful. Tell them what you are proud of that they have achieved, so that they understand these words. That takes this whole exercise away from just a pure planning exercise into, again, linking back to last week, if you like, into this idea that, what do you want for your children? Whatever you want for your children, maybe one of the things includes for them to know that you're proud of them and for them to believe that they are successful. This could be a great way to pivot the questions into that and to link all of this together. So it's not a morbid question. It's an exercise in thought designed to help you get more clarity about what you want in the future. Don't get to the real end and then remember this podcast and go, I wish I'd done something about it. I can't remember my happy list. I don't feel successful. I don't feel I've achieved anything, but I've got a pile of regrets. And maybe one of your regrets will be not doing the exercise as I have suggested it. Get to the real end, whenever that may be. And I hope that it is a long time in the future, whenever suits you. And remember this exercise and remember that list. Goodness me, can you imagine how many things would be on your happy list? And maybe that's something you can put next to the happy calendar. You can add this happy list that you've created here, and even a list of all the things that you've been successful at and the things that you're proud of. And what if you added to them once a month? Just have a little thought. What am I happy? What have I done that's made a wonderful, happy memory for me? Add it to the list. It might be something that was planned out in your calendar. It might be something that wasn't on your calendar, and now you want to add it into your calendar so that you can recreate those happy moments again and again and again, even though they'll have slightly different flavors. Maybe as you start to build that list of all the things that you've been successful at, you'll really change your own beliefs and recognize that you are, in fact, a very successful person, creating a wealthy life where you get to do what you love with those that matter to you most, and do what matters to you most with those you love. I hope that I've been able to put a little bit more whoosh into your life. My name is Vicky Whooshay, and I just want to help you create the life of your dreams, make it a reality, make it a tangible, wealthy life that you can live, that you can enjoy, and that you can pass on to others. Until next week, thank you very much for listening. I appreciate your time, as always.